Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Ramki. I'm a physical therapist at RVA Physical Therapy and Sports Rehab here in Richmond. And happy to have Vinod Kanyanur Venkatesan present his topic on understanding dizziness and vertigo. And basically, Vinod is a college mate from my bachelor's in Ramchandra. And he's been practicing in Vancouver, Canada, and his scope of practice is mainly in acute and chronic pain patients, and mainly on, especially, he has done a lot of patients with concussion and vestibular rehab, certified by American Institute of Balance, and he has done his dry needling or acupuncture needling, certified with Gun IMS and dry needling in acupuncture. And he's working as an independent contractor in CBI Health Center, Surrey, Vancouver, BC, and Back and Body Wellness Center at Surrey, Vancouver, BC. So, Vinod, here you go. The stage is yours.
Hi, hello. Today we're going to discuss something more about a relatively uh, uh, topic wherein which is a little misnomer. Vertigo is a condition wherein there are multiple reasons to it, and Ramki has definitely spoke to you about my scope of my practice. And now let's go directly into uh, what is it and what is dizziness all about, and what are the possible causes of dizziness at this point of time. So, if you want to know what dizziness is all about, it can be described as a range of sensations. It is not one specific sensation. It is a wide range of sensations. People can report to us saying that they feel woozy, they feel unsteady, they feel weak on their legs, and they feel faint. Everything relates to the dizziness. There are multiple reasons for it, and one has got to be the common neurological conditions. We are aware of stroke or Parkinson's disease, and they do definitely cause some amount of dizziness. But there are other multiple reasons to it. So that is one of the ways which is easily identifiable. And medications, example would be like blood pressure lowering medications or antihypertensive medications can definitely cause you some amount of dizziness, and certain anxiety disorders can cause it. Low levels of ions can cause it. Low blood sugar can cause it. Carbon monoxide poisoning can cause it. And we do know that we do get heat stroke on dehydration, even they cause dizziness. So now let's go on to one of those dizziness categories. It's your vertigo that we're going to talk about. So there are three important areas that are related to in terms of vertigo as such. The first being the eye, the sensory nerves, and the inner ear problems. So all these three could cause a certain amount of dizziness or distortion of information from within the body. And the second thing has got to be like, it gives you a sense of false surroundings or something like a spinning. So that can also be understood as vertigo. And finally, in terms of the integration of information from our supercomputer that we have, that's the brain, there are certain signals that are always related to the brain, and there is always a mismatch in case of a vertigo or a dizziness. So when we are talking about this mismatch, the information comes from the legs out to your neck or to your upper extremities or your lower extremities. They relay information about how your body is aligned. And there is one important information from the eyes that tells you how are you placed to the surroundings. And finally, this is the small link wherein the inner ear, wherein there is a balance apparatus in your inner ear, and that tells you how you are placed in relation to the space. So when all these three information comes to your brain for processing, and when the brain is going to process this particular information, there is definitely a mismatch on this. So there is an altered understanding of our sense in terms of how are we feeling in relation to our space. So, and as we talk about the benign positional paroxysmal vertigo, so this is one of the most common vertigo that anybody could have, and this particular organ is called as a semicircular canal, and they are present in the inner ear aspect. So, and of all this semicircular canal, there is a small area called as a utricle, and this one, there is a fluid that is circulating in it, and the circulation of the fluid tells the brain about the position of your head in space. So I have to tell you in the most simplest form. So there are fluids inside the ears, and that tells you how your head is aligned in space. So that's the easiest way to explain. So for example, when you tilt your head towards your left, there is a downward, I meant to say, like they try to balance like a little, they're trying to balance out. So one goes down, the fluid goes down, the other ear fluid goes up, so that you are relatively stable. And what eventually happens is when you also turn towards your left or to your right, one fluid goes back, the other goes forward. So they tend to help you in terms of identifying your position of head in space. That's more important. So now what eventually happens is, if you see that there is the second particular picture over here, the smaller picture over here, is where the problem of the positional vertigo happens. And so what eventually happens in case of a vertigo is got to be like, you have an intense, brief episode of vertigo. Vertigo, as we discussed, there is a mismatch of information that the brain is not able to process. The information is coming from your limbs and from your sensory organs like your eyes, and also from the inner ear. And there is a mismatch, and there is a relative misunderstanding of the environment, how you are placed in the environment. And this can happen because of a sudden change in the head position or a quick change in the head position. Okay, the example would be like just turning around in the bed or coming to sitting position can also cause vertigo. And so as we said, the sudden head movement is going to cause movement of the inner ear fluids. And these movements are going to stimulate the hair follicles in the inner ear. And when the fluid is moving, these hair follicles tend to move along with them. And they create something called a neural signal. And so the vibration is changed into an electricity, and then this information is carried through the nerve and reaches the brain. Okay, so as we discussed earlier, the information is also coming from the neck and the extremities, so that it is going to be easy for us to compare. So this one is going to be a relatively easier understanding of how things are. So you can see that a person who is going to be standing, the inner ear, the hair follicles or the substrate or all this little calcium carbonate particles called as autocorneas, they are relatively fairly stable. And when you bend forward, they tend to move, they cause this little movement, and the fluid of movement is going to cause some stimulation in terms of the hair follicles, and then they tend to send the information up into your brain. And now let us talk in terms of what all this calcium particles is all about. Before going into that, I just wanted to make sure that I talk to you a little more of this particular calcium particles. So these autocorneas are calcium particles, and they are freely suspending into the inner fluid that we've been talking about inside our ears. Now we have to understand the fact that there are two important factors that are responsible in terms of how fast these particles are going to settle down. So most importantly, one important factor has got to be the vitamin D. Vitamin D is very responsible for metabolism of calcium ions. And number two, how thick or what is the viscosity of the fluid. If you have to say what is the viscosity, the oil does not feel similar to the water, and the grease does not feel similar to the oil. So grease is more viscous than oil, and oil is more viscous than water. So it is the ability of those molecules, how they are bound with each other. So viscosity of the inner ear fluid is a very vital, important factor in terms of this vertigo as such. So if you have to go more into it, so when we get dehydrated, when we don't drink enough water, what eventually happens is the viscosity of this fluid increases. And this dehydration can cause a flaking of the substrate where the hair follicles are there. And this substrate material is rich in calcium. And when you don't have enough vitamin D, or when you don't have enough dehydration, these particles take much longer to settle down in a much thicker fluid. So, and there, the movement of this particular particles are going to stimulate more turbulence within the fluid in the inner ear, and thereby it is going to cause more stimulation on this hair follicles, and this excessive hyperstimulation is going to cause this mismatch of information that you receive from your legs, your arms, your neck, your eyes. So thereby we feel that sense of wooziness or dizziness, or the whole room seems to be spinning. These are some of those symptoms that clients trying to tell me, and more importantly, they also feel nauseous, they sometimes throw up. All these can happen when the free floating calcium particles, they take much longer to settle down. You can ask me the next question, what happens if I turn my head slowly? So we have to understand the fact that vertigo that we are talking about right now is velocity dependent, which means the faster you turn, the faster these particles are thrown up. And the slower you turn, less would be the dislodging of these calcium particles. And when less particles are being dislodged, and you don't tend to feel that sensation of the whole room spinning or wooziness. So it is velocity dependent. That's more important differentiating factor. A physiotherapist would definitely ask you in his assessment of your dizziness, how do you get it and when do you get it? So the normal complaints would be like, every time when I do a shoulder check, I tend to get dizzy. I tend to feel woozy. The whole scenario or the whole environment feels spinning. So this is a very classical benign positional paroxysmal vertigo. So now going into the next thing, this is what I talked to you about the calcium particles. See that? Now then, if you go onto the actual slide as such, if you see, these are the utricles, they have those little hair follicles and the calcium substrate. And now they tend to get dislodged or displaced out of its place. And they tend to come into the canals. The canals are the pathways where the fluid is circulating. So, and now imagine when this is going to be displaced. Normally, when you come into lying position or when you come into sitting position, they tend to float into this particular fluid, and then they try to settle down to the bottom. And we feel this particular intense dizziness, or we feel this intense stimulation from the inner ear until these particles settle down. And once they settle down, you don't feel much dizziness. Okay, so there are three canals for that particular matter. One is the horizontal canal, and that tells us information. For example, if you have a hand stretched out like a flight wings, okay, so when one goes down, the other goes up. So similar to that, we do have this horizontal canals, and there are two other canals, the posterior canal and the anterior canal. So they are aligned in such a way that every time when you look up and turn towards the side, the posterior canal is going to be activated. And anyway, when you look down, anterior canal is getting activated. So it's the direction of this particular particles. And a physiotherapist would be in a better position to assess very clearly in terms of where these particles are going to be dislodged. So, and as we discussed, yeah, so this is a common test that we normally do in terms of what happens in terms of assessment, especially in the posterior canal. Normally, what eventually happens is a physiotherapist would definitely help you into a BPPV condition, and you may need only 1 to 2 treatments. But It is one of the most easiest vertigo to treat, and your physio is the right person to go to because he has enough information in terms of giving you the right amount of exercises or the right amount of treatment that you need. So what eventually happens at this point of time is this particular test is done as we discussed, that the velocity is what it determines. The velocity is how fast you move your neck. So now then we are going to turn your head to a 45-degree angle and ask you to look up at about 45-degree angle, and you are advised to open your eyes, and the physiotherapist suddenly drops your head down to about 30 degrees from sitting position. Okay, so this is going to cause this otocorneas, or the calcium particles within the inner ears, to get dislodged. And as we see, there is going to be a specific pattern of eye movement that we observe with this particular test. So as I told you, the inner ear, the information from the eyes and the information from the limbs are going to be vital in terms of assessing or maintaining your equilibrium. Now, what is eventually happening at this point of time is we are challenging your inner ear in a way that we are fastly moving you from sitting position to lying position, and we are also taking your head to almost about 30 degrees in upward looking position, or we call it as an extension and rotation pattern. So in this particular way, we normally looking for a specific pattern of your eye movement. So when you look into a very classical sign, it'll tell you like the eye is going to go on for a rotatory nystagmus. The nystagmus is a condition wherein that we looking for the eyes of a client, wherein we would see the eyeball oscillates on its own. Okay, it is an involuntary oscillation of the eyeball, and it will be in a rotatory pattern. And this rotation will help us determine which side of your ear is affected. So when we see that there is going to be a rotatory movement in your eye, or when we see that it is going to cause you the dizziness again, or the whole room spinning again, then the test is considered positive. So this particular test is very simply administered and does not require a huge setup to do it. All that you need is a simple couch to administer it. So now, as a part of its treatment is concerned, so the treatment is continuation of this particular test maneuver, wherein a physiotherapist skillfully places this particular, if you see that the normal canal that is normally affected, or the most usual canal that is affected, is your posterior canal, that is behind. So eventually, when we treat it, the maneuver that is designed by a gentleman named Epley, and his particular method has been very instrumental in terms of putting the client into a different position, so that these floating particles are sent back or dumped back into the place where they belong to. So that's the easiest way to do it. So something that has come out of its original position and it has been floating all through it has to be dumped. It's like a garbage. You dump the garbage back into the garbage bin. So that's how it is. So physiotherapists can definitely do this particular in a very skillful manner, wherein you go through these steps. Okay, so and if you see this, this can also relate to the way that our ear looks like. So when somebody is going to lie down, these otocorneas, or the calcium particles, or the free floating particles, I'm just going to go back. Okay, so this mimics our ear basically. So when you lie down, eventually what happens, these otocorneas go into the top portion of your ear. And then what eventually happens is when you turn the head to the opposite side, which is going to be saying that after your test position is done, okay, so your head is rotated to the opposite side when you're lying down. So eventually this has to be done after your dizziness settles down. So when you're dizzy, we'll allow your dizziness to settle down, and we will apply a gentle head thrust that is going to help you to completely throw away all the particles to the top of your ear. And from there, we turn your head to the opposite side. And now then the example shown is on the right side. You turn your head to the left side. And now what eventually happens is these calcium particles, or those floating elements, they are thrown back into the position until they come down, they descend down. And once when you completely come to the sideline position, they are in a way that they come back into the lower end of your ear. And when you sit down, sit back, okay, eventually with the therapist supporting your head properly throughout the particular maneuver, it will offer you much more, it will offer you much more comfort, or it will offer you much more confidence that somebody is going to hold on to your head with the whole process. So eventually, when you sit up, all these are dumped back into the inner ear where the garbage bin is, the utricle is. So once all these particles are dumped back, so you can ask me whether it's going to come back. Yes, there is high chances that it can come back. And we tend to send clients with, we try to do this a couple of times to ensure that there is no more dizziness that is going to happen with the tested side. And once the treatment is done, we advise you to take sufficient water for hydration, and we advise you to start on vitamin D after discussing with your physician. Okay, so once you start doing these, then you would be able to see some changes. And along with that, there are certain exercises that physiotherapist is going to help you in terms of to avoid these particular treatment patterns or such, okay, to avoid this particular vertigo as such. So the options are, number one is going to be like an adaptation. So these are certain strategies where a physiotherapist is going to tell you what to do. And as we know that it is velocity dependent, instead of turning your head faster, you can have an option wherein you can try to turn your head slow, or you can turn your whole body. Normally, the adaptation strategy is well understood, or it is very well founded by the client themselves, because they know what not to do. And next is the substitution strategy, wherein we have to make sure that we substitute you to a certain particle, wherein your physio is going to give you with certain exercises. And finally, the habituation, making you used to this dizziness, or getting your threshold higher so that you don't feel that dizzy anymore. So the stimulus and the response are tamed down. Okay, the response is tamed down to a given stimulus. So how do you do that? Giving the frequent stimulus over a period of time is going to tame down the response. So these are certain strategies that we can definitely use in terms of your treatment. And furthermore, there are other further exercises like gaze stabilization exercises, the balance exercises. So as we discussed that the balance is also affected in it, and your eye is an integral portion in terms of treatment of your inner ear. So your therapist would be able to tell you what is a gaze stabilization exercise, or what balance exercises that you have to do, or what habituation exercises that you need to do. Okay, so the most simple remedies lies in your hand. Stay hydrated, and vitamin D supplements help. Okay, so now this is all about the inner ear particle wherein the physio can help you. So before going into the other causes for vertigo, whatever maybe the reasons are, the dizziness is one of the wider picture that we are discussing today. Your dizziness can also be result of a motor vehicle accident, and you could land up with something called as a concussion. And this concussion is like sharing of the brain, and your brain is inside a cavity, and then when there is a high impact motor vehicle accident, our head tends to go forward and backward. So what eventually happens is the brain is like a jelly, and then they go forward and backward along with that particular force. And though there is no actual physical damage to the brain, we call it as a mild traumatic brain injury. So that can lead to dizziness, ringing sounds in your ear, feeling fatigue, nausea, wherein a physio plays a vital role in helping you with the concussion aspects. Even you can have ringing sounds in your ear, and all these are those scenarios a physio could definitely help you. The second reason where you can have the dizziness, where a physiotherapist is of much greater importance, is something wherein which is called as a cervicogenic dizziness. So cervicogenic means the dizziness originates at the neck area. So a physio can definitely identify whether dizziness is because of a concussion, whether it is because of vertigo, that is the benign positional paroxysmal vertigo, or if it is related to the concussion. And on all these three scenarios, a physio would be of vital importance in your recovery. Okay, so now let's go into the other causes of vertigo, wherein there can be an infection or an inflammation in your inner ear, and then the objective is to treat the cause. The objective is to treat the cause. So once you treat the cause, eventually the vertigo can go away. And Meniere's disease is one of those it is little uncommon problem, but it is happening a lot in a population who is a little older, and they can cause sudden episodes of dizziness and vertigo, and it can even lead to a permanent hearing loss. And this is just because of the excessive buildup of fluid on the inner ear. And there are surgeries that people do in terms of getting rid of this. I'm not sure about the recovery part of it, because people do tend to progress even after the surgery. So the most important thing has got to be like the migraines, the headaches. As you get an aura, and migraine can also mimic vertigo. That is like a little dizziness, little nausea, little vomiting, and you tend to be irritated with even with less noise, or the photosensitivity, like exposure to the bright lights, can also bring about certain symptoms that are related to dizziness and vertigo. And finally, one of those small benign growths in your auditory nerve or the vestibular nerve in your ear can also cause a lot of dizziness and imbalance and vertigo kind of symptoms. So that brings up to the end of my particular topic in terms of discussion. And if you have some questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Before any questions, Vinod, thank you once again for nice and crisp presentation. I think you are on the point with a lot of information there. And any questions, guys? Looks like I didn't see any hands raised up. So Vinod, besides the positioning, like Epley's maneuver and other things that you talked about, especially I'm wanted to talk about the cervicogenic aspect. What other treatments do you usually recommend for neck pain related to cervical region pain or headache related to that?
See, normally, if you see the patterns of understanding the way that your musculoskeletal system works, there are two important culprits that I normally look into in terms of treating any neck-related issue. The first one is got to be like a TREPS. So the pattern in terms of your TREPS have is like it mimics that headache, it mimics that little area. So needling that particular TREPS is going to be much more better. And on top of it, the suboccipits, you can say the semispinalis on your neck, which is very tight into those scenarios wherein we tend to have a lot of forwarded posture, and semispinalis being very tight, we can needle the semispinalis or release it with the myofascial release or any of those manual techniques, is found to improve especially the tinnitus or the dizziness or the headaches much better.
Okay, thank you. I think Gladstone has some questions.
Hi, Glad.
Hello, Vinod. Hello, Ranki. It was good to hear from you. And I have one question, Vinod. Like, do you use any special test to find out what kind of vertigo is the patient having? Do you use any standardized tests like Dix-Hallpike, or do you use also any other tests like, what is it called, CT-ESIB? Could you briefly explain about that?
The objective was, yeah, there are a lot of tests that can be used. A log roll can be used to identify the horizontal nystagmus, or in terms of, or the horizontal canals are involved, or to be more precise in terms of, you can also use Dix-Hallpike. We did discuss about Dix-Hallpike in this particular presentation. So what eventually happens is it depends upon where the dizziness is going to come from. As we discussed, if the client is going to have a cervicogenic dizziness, then we have to treat the cervix. I mean to say, like, you have to definitely rule out the neck before you actually test for any Dix-Hallpike maneuver or any of those.
Okay.
You can try the
okay.
You can try the head thrust technique, or you can try the simple cervical rotation techniques, or you can see the any of those which reproduces that particular condition. We have to go back in terms of assessing them, and there is no specific special test as such in terms of treating the dizziness. The majority of the information is received through a client's history, and based on that, we decide what we go along.
Okay, no, okay, thank you. And sorry, one more question. Like, you also briefly explained about, like, what is it called, gaze stabilization exercises.
Yes.
How good are those exercises? Like, when you compare, like, doing a Eppler's maneuver, like, what do you think? Which one is better? Is it the maneuver or those kind of balance exercises?
See, the Eppler's is the best in terms of, because as we discussed, this is brought about by the floating of these calcium particles, right? So
Yeah.
these calcium particles have to be dumped back. It's like garbage thrown out of its place. So you need to take the garbage collector and throw it back to the garbage bin. So that's how the Eppler's works.
Okay.
So once garbage is collected, the autokania, the free-floating materials are collected, and then you dump it back into that particular utricle, then still, I mean to say, like, that's the best treatment. And the gaze stabilization or any other technique is going to help you to have a better control on your symptoms, even when a physio is not nearby.
Okay, Vinod. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I think that's about it for the questions. And good point on hydration, Vinod. I think that's the key after any treatment. It's very important. So thank you once again for your time, Vinod, and thanks everybody for attending. Next weekend we will have an orthopedic doctor. He's going to talk about a couple of procedures that he usually does and when you should go to him, and when you can avoid surgery, and when to recommend therapy and things like that. Followed by Sunday, we're going to have a psychiatrist talking. So it's going to be really interesting sessions. So try to log in. The following week, since it's going to be Memorial Day weekend, we're going to skip that weekend as of right now. But I already have next 2 weekends lined up. So hopefully we can continue this till June 10th, like the governor of Virginia has said, stay in. And of course, everything is opening up. We'll see how things go. Stay safe. Once again, thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Ramki. Thank you for your initiative. It's been a great initiative. It's a great learning curve to hear others speak. So thank you for the opportunity.
Some technical issue. Sorry about that. Can you guys still hear me? Hello?